Hi again. Today we're going to talk about common fractions. These common fractions, we're going to change them to decimal fractions. And from decimal fractions, we're going to write decimal numbers using the pattern. As you can see, I have my common fractions written out. Let's look at the denominators. It's a 2, a 5, a 4, a 4, 125, 8, 50, 25, and 30. In order for these fractions to be decimal fractions, they need to change their denominators, and their denominators either have to be a 10, a 100, or 1000. So our job is to change the denominator to make one of those. Now when we do multiply, we are actually making equivalent fractions. And we must multiply the top, the numerator, and the bottom, denominator, by the exact same number. So now we're going to look at the 2, and we say, what must we change the 2 by to make 10? And hopefully you know your tables, and you're going to say 5, because 2 times 5 is 10. And what we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So now we have 1 times 5. When we multiply in a straight line. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. We have now created a decimal fraction. Our denominator is a 10. From here, we're now going to use the pattern to make it a decimal number. Immediately, I put a comma down. I then look how many zeros do I have on my denominator, and I have 1. Therefore, I am only allowed to use one place after the comma. So therefore, the number on top, the numerator, will fill up the one place behind the comma, and my answer is 0,5. Now let's look at the next common fraction. Again, this one is a 5. We're going to make the denominator a 10, 100, or 1,000. Knowing your tables, you're going to say, well, that's easy. It's times 2. And what I do to the bottom, I do to the top. Our new equivalent fraction is going to be 4 over 10. Once again, I am now going to change my decimal fraction to a decimal number using the pattern. Because there is only one 0 on the 10, I write a comma and I put only one dash behind the comma. The numerator 4 is going to fall on that line, and our answer is 0,4. Now we look at this one. The denominator here is 4, and the denominator here is 4. We'll do them simultaneously. Well, I can't double 4 to make 10. I can't halve it, and I can't multiply it by 3. So my next pick is going to be 100. So I need to multiply 4 by a certain number to get to 100. These are one of the fractions that you should actually learn because it's a very commonly used fraction. I'm going to multiply by 25. And what I do to the bottom, I do to the top. My new equivalent fraction is 25 over 100. Remember, we multiply in a straight line. Now we're going to change our common fraction, or our decimal fraction. We're going to change it to a decimal number. Because there are 2 zeros in our denominator, I'm going to go comma, dash, dash. That means I'm going to take my numerator 25 and I'm going to put it behind my answer 0,25. My denominator here is also 4, so logic must tell me I'm going to be multiplying by 25. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 3 times 25 is 75 over 100. That decimal fraction, again, I look at the number of zeros in my denominator. I go comma, dash, dash. My numerator 75 must fill up my 2 spaces behind the comma. 8 over 125. This one's not that commonly used in grade 5 or grade 6, but it does show its head every once in a while, and I would suggest you learn it off by heart. Logic tells you it's not going to work to 10, and it's certainly not going to work to 100. So the only other one that's left is 1,000. And 125 multiplied by 8, what I do to the bottom, I do to the top. Therefore, I multiply in a straight line. 8 times 8 is 64. And 125 times 8 is 1,000. Our equivalent fraction is 64 over 1,000, which makes it a decimal fraction. Once again, I'm using the pattern. I count the number of zeros. There are 3 of them, so I go comma, dash, dash, dash. My numerator 64 must fill up the 3 places behind the comma, putting the 4 in the last place, the 6 and the 0. 0, 0, 6, 4 is my answer. Now this one is actually the opposite of this one. 8 times 125, these are just one of the numbers you should learn off by heart. 8 times 125 is 1,000. 2 times 125 will give you 250. Now I'm going to look at the number of zeros in my denominator. That means I must use all 3 places behind the comma. My numerator will fill it up, 250. Final answer, 0,250. 50 now should start ringing a bell. Well, I can't halve it because that's not going to work. I can't multiply it by 3. But if you know your tables, 50 can be doubled to make 100. Doubling is to times by 2. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. I now multiply in a straight line. I get 80 over 100. Again, I look at the number of zeros in my denominator, and I go comma, dash, dash. My 80 fills up the spot. My answer is 0,80. But if you're smart and you know that that number there, or the placeholder 0 when not being used, can actually disappear, the answer will be 0,8. Same for the fraction, the decimal number over here. Your answer here could also be 0,25. When we go over here now, our denominator is 25. I'm going to multiply it by 4 because 25 times 4 is 100. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 4 times 4 equals 16. My decimal fraction is now going to change to decimal number. I'm looking at the zeros and using the pattern, comma, dash, dash, 1 for each 0. My final answer, 0,16. Now my last fraction that I've got for you is 9 over 30. Well, I can't double it, I can't halve it, but sometimes in order to go forward, you have to go backwards first. What if I divide my denominator by 3? And what I do to the top, I do to the bottom. 30 divided by 3 is 10. 9 divided by 3 is 3. There we go. We have a decimal fraction. So there is 1 0 over there. So I'm going to put 1 dash behind the comma. The 3 4's in behind the comma. And my answer is 0,3. And that's the simple way of changing common fractions to decimal fractions to decimal numbers using the pattern. Cheers for now.